Welcome back to the FTN College Basketball Betting Show. I'm your host, Mike Randle. You can follow me on Twitter at Randle Rant. Folks, thank you for joining us here. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button as we roll out all the fantastic college basketball content here on a super Saturday with fantastic games all over the place as we get ready to head into the season. The calendar has turned to December. There is so much great content, great games all across the board here. Join us at FTN as we have fantastic games going for you. I am going to take you through the games today. We're going to review yesterday a little bit. I have several matchups that I like here. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, throw us a comment, throw us a like. Let us know how we're doing as we're going to break this down for you here and take you all the way through a fantastic Saturday and hopefully put some money in your pocket. Here we go. Let's look at last night because a lot of things we can always learn, and we certainly learned some last night. First off, Baylor versus Gonzaga. Now, I've been down on Gonzaga this year. Yes, I have, because I don't have trust in their wings. But I will tell you this. There was a lot of growth that occurred here with Gonzaga. They battled Baylor. This was in the Sanford Pentagon. It was a neutral site game. Baylor got up very early, doing what they do, hitting threes. George, Flagler making shots, but Gonzaga came back, and they came back without Drew Timme having a big game. There's a lot of players who've returned, big-time players last year, Timme, Armando Bacot, who have not performed to the level that we thought. Don't assume because you come back that it's going to be a better year. It is not necessarily the case. So they've returned, and Timme struggled in this game, had under 10 points, but Gonzaga hung around. I think there's two things Gonzaga has to do. Number one, they have to start Malachi Smith, super quick. Guard, can attack the basket, can get in the lane. He's one of the few players that can actually attack the basket against athletic, better top 20 teams. Julian Strother is a shooter. Rasir Bolton has not been that guy, and they have to get Nolan Hickman off the floor. He is not that player. He was a highly recruited player. It's not there. Hickman can come off the bench. Smith can start because he gets everyone going and everyone into a flow. Baylor comes back. Flagler hits a big shot, 64-63. So Baylor getting 2.5. I said the wrong team was favored and was right, but Gonzaga hung tough and can be a team under Mark Few, a fantastic coach who eventually gets better as the season goes on. Auburn bounces back at home, number 15 in the country over Colgate. Good Colgate team, but Auburn at home, angry, 93-66, comfortable cover. If you got that game, you were safe and you took it to the window right away. Congratulations. Maryland, Illinois, fantastic battle. I have to look at this Maryland team a little closer. I don't like Kevin Willard. I think he can build a program, but I don't think he can take it to the next level. I've seen him here in Seton Hall when he's done it locally. Now he's at Maryland, but Maryland showed up here. Jameer Young, 24 points, big scoring, Reese inside. Maryland is a very dangerous team. They look the part. They got a win against a solid opponent here. Illinois was close, but Mike Mayer, the transfer from Baylor, was in foul trouble almost the entire game, which really limited them. Regardless, Maryland now 8-0, Illinois 6-2. Maryland looking very good with a nice win and a cover here. It was a 1-point game late. Illinois missed a shot, couldn't make it. Young hits a big three, had 24 points. The transfer came over to Maryland locally. Looks really good. Maryland with a huge, huge win. You know, when you have rivalry games, and we will talk about this in a little bit, when you have rivalry games, something funky and weird can always happen. And that's what happened with Brown and Bryant, two schools in Rhode Island. Bryant, superior team scoring. Brown, so far, has only been a team that's been dangerous at home, not on the road. Brown comes out and lights up Bryant early, scoring, hitting threes. Bryant gets buried. They can never recover. Brown gets the win on the road at Bryant, 44-24. I got this game wrong. Brown was up huge right away, 20 points in the first half. Bryant was dead and buried on a Friday night at Bryant. Tough place to play, solid team, well coached by Jared Grasso. Brown got the better of them. Rivalry games, especially early in the season, can be very tricky, and that's what this one was, even though Bryant had a very good crowd there. James Madison gets the win against Eastern Kentucky. Eastern Kentucky can score, but no one can score with James Madison. Only game this year, James Madison, I've really seen huge struggles, was the game they played against North Carolina on the road, where North Carolina was on fire. They lost Valparaiso by 2. That was an upset. You knew they were going to bounce back here. They bounced back and got the nice cover. Very nice win for James Madison, a team I'm very high on. Mark Byington wants to get to the NCAA tournament. After last year, they were locked out of getting to the tournament because they were leaving the conference and now down in the Sun Belt. Clemson continues to roll at home, folks. Clemson, it's not sexy. It's not a team with a lot of big names, but they got a 20-point win in the ACC opener over a good Wake Forest team. at home. Hall inside, 21 points, 8 rebounds. Clemson is an issue. They continue to win comfortable games at home. They're tough. The ACC is kind of wide open this year because North Carolina doesn't look great. Duke, I'm not so sure of. Virginia, to me, is head and shoulders, but everyone else is together. Clemson takes notice. Now 7-2, 20-point win at home over Wake Forest. UMass Harvard game, folks. If you tailed me on this game and you followed it, again, sometimes we get the handicap right and it just doesn't go our way. We got the 2 points with Harvard. They have the ball, 2 seconds left, under their basket, down 1. We're safe. Either they're going to score or they're going to miss, and either way we're going to cover. Big man inside for Harvard. Ledlum dribbles the ball after 25 and 10 off his leg. He catches it under the basket, dribbles it right off his leg. UMass gets the ball inbounds, get fouled. They win by 3. We don't get the cover. UMass covers. We don't get the play. It's fine. Sometimes you can handicap it right. This was a tough, sleepy spot. A good Harvard team at home. We got the 2 points it should have covered, but UMass 6-1, 2-0. Only lost this year to Townsend. Frank Martin doing an outstanding job. Charlotte at home, Appalachian State, sort of a game there in the middle of the East Coast that can be a tricky one. Appalachian State, very well coached by Dustin Kearns. They were up 42-31 at the half. They were up huge by almost 18, maybe 20 points to start the game at Charlotte. Charlotte, really solid defensive team, really well coached, comes all the way back, wins and covers for us, 71-62. Charlotte now 4-0 at home here, playing very, very well. And the last one I'll mention here, Liberty 79, Maryland Eastern Shore 59. And this ties into a game I'm going to pick very shortly. When you have these disciplined teams that play well, that are well coached like Liberty, they're not going to lose to a helter-skelter, crazy shooting team. That's not the type of teams they lose to. We all remember Virginia lost in the NCAA tournament. Who'd they lose to? A team that was a slow-down team, that was very deliberate, that was going to play their style and play it better. Now, I know that's hard to do. It was UMBC. But in this case, Maryland Eastern Shore with their turnovers, Liberty up by 25 at the half, coast to a 20-point win, gets us the cover there on a 16 or 17-point spread. All right, folks, let's take a look at the games today. I have several that I want to talk about across the board. What I did is I took a look at these games and I rated them from how sure I was to mediocre, back and forth a little bit. What I have right now is absolutely some picks that I feel very strongly about that I think are worth the look. So let's get right into it and see if we can get you some money here to start your Saturday off as we turn the calendar into December. Here we go. First one up, Rutgers and Indiana. It's a big game here in New Jersey, down at the Rack. That's our first game. Indiana's been perfect. Indiana's been great. I understand that. But let me give you some stats here about Rutgers. I don't know if the Hoosiers are that good. Rutgers, at home in the Rack in Piscataway, New Jersey, very tough to beat. Rutgers last year as a home underdog, 6-0 against the spread. Rutgers in the COVID year 2 years ago, 2-1 as a home underdog. Rutgers is 2-0 as a home underdog in 2019-2020, which means Rutgers is 10-1 as a home underdog against the spread since 2019. And in those 11 games, folks, Rutgers is 9-2 straight up. They've won the game 9 of 11 times as a home dog. As a home team against the spread, period, since 2019. Rutgers 32-19-3 against the spread. That's 62, almost 63%. The only thing, and I mean the only thing that gives me pause here, is that the question is, will Paul Mulcahy, their guard, play? He's missed the game, starting point guard with a shoulder injury. He has not played since November 12th against UMass Lowell, but I think there's a decent chance he plays. The matchup inside, you see the big man there for Indiana. It's Trace Jackson Davis, but he is going to find resistance against 6'11" Cliff Amaruri, who's going to bring his best effort against Jackson Davis. This is an NBA draft battle here in the afternoon down at the Rack. 2019, Rutgers beat Indiana at home 66-58. 2020, Rutgers beat Indiana at home 59-50. Trace Jackson Davis had about 6 points in that game. 2021, Rutgers beat Indiana at home 74-63. Trace Jackson Davis 21-11. So Rutgers has beaten Indiana when Jackson Davis has had big performances. And in 2022, last year, Rutgers beat Indiana away at Indiana, which is almost impossible to do. Amaruri, 13-12, 4 blocks. Trace Jackson Davis, 19 and 9. My point, Steve Peichel, great coach. He knows how to prepare for Indiana, whether Trace Jackson Davis has a big game or not. Rutgers is home. I think Amaruri is going to play very well, and I think Mulcahy could actually play in this game. They could be playing possum. It's the conference opener, and I draw nothing from Indiana's 12-point win over UNC because the Tar Heels play no, and I mean no defense. They gave up 50 at home in the first half to Charleston, so pleased with that. Charleston 7-1, but 50 is too much. Are you excited? I certainly am. I am going here with Rutgers plus 3.5 in my first game at home, a game they can win straight out. And if Mulcahy plays and they're playing possum, I think Rutgers wins this game straight out. Indiana, you ask yourself, they're 7-0. Mike Woodson's done a great job. Are they that good? Are they an 8-0 team? Are they a team in the Big Ten that's going to win a game like this on the road against a team they've always struggled against? I don't think they do. First game, folks, we're going with Rutgers plus 3.5. Second game we're going with here, Tulane versus Fordham. Now, let's go down to the Big Easy here with Tulane. Coaching, to me, always matters. It does. And in this situation, Fordham, first-year head coach Keith Ergo, he is 7-1. Yes, Fordham is 7-1. Only time they left those comforts of Arthur Avenue, fantastic Italian food down Arthur Avenue, they lost to Arkansas by 26. They got smashed. Now you go to Tulane, and you bring a brutal offensive turnover percentage. Fordham was in trouble at home against Illinois, Chicago. Fordham was in trouble at home against Maine. They turned the ball over. They are going there to play Tulane. Now, you're going to say Tulane's only 5-2. They lost to Western Kentucky and Nevada. Why should I lay 11.5 points with Tulane at home against a good Fordham team that's 7-1? Answer is very simple. It's sophomore Jalen Cook. Jalen Cook played 2 games this year for Tulane. 23 points, 14 points. Green Wave up by 20 and 15 in both of those games. Cook was 18 points per game last year at Tulane. He led the team in three-point percentage, 40%. Does he matter? You're darn right he matters. Jalen Forbes, Kevin Cross, and Cook, all prolific scorers, all fantastic scorers. Tulane does not turn the ball over. They are not going to give Fordham a lot of second chances because they have fantastic guards. They make their free throws, and teams have been making an insane amount of free throws against Tulane this year, over 80%. Can we take it easy about Fordham, please? Last 3 games, they beat Maine by 5 at home. They beat Harvard by 8. They beat Stonehill by 11. Maybe too many meatballs down there at Dominic's in Arthur Avenue. Fantastic restaurant. Who knows? But I'm going to grab Tulane here, and I'm going to lay the points. Ron Hunter with Tulane, second most returning minutes from last year of any team in college basketball. Continuity, stars, players that can score. If Jalen Cook, for some reason, is ruled out at the last minute, you never know with these injuries. We've seen it. We'll talk about it with Temple VCU in a little bit. I will take Fordham because Jalen Cook makes that big a difference. He's another guard. He can attack the basket. He's a 20-point-per-game scorer. He's that type of impact. But assuming that he's healthy, and he looked healthy last game, Tulane minus 11.5, game 2. That's where I'm going. Moving on, next game here. Folks, let's talk a little bit about UVA. Now, I love UVA. We all love UVA versus Florida State. I don't know a reason why on earth you're going to pick against UVA in this game. I can't. And if you want to pick against them, that's totally fine. But I don't see the reason why you're going to pick against them in this game. UVA looks fantastic. UVA is a team for me that I think we're going to have a national championship caliber team that you can focus on here. They are playing a Florida State team that is absolutely horrific, who has not played well this year, who has not done well. I am going to go with Virginia, minus 19 against Florida State. Florida State is 1-8 against the spread. They're 1-8 overall, and they have a 9-point win against Mercer. They are 2-7 against the spread. Florida State has actually beaten Virginia the last 2 times they've played. So don't tell me this is a sleepy spot for the Cavos. This is the ACC opener for both teams. The game is in Charlottesville. Florida State actually wants to run. Remember we talked about with Liberty from the game last night? They want to run with Virginia. That is not how you're going to beat the Cavaliers at home. 58th fastest tempo for Florida State per KenPom. They aren't even efficient when they run. 46% from 2-point range, 31% from 3-point range, and under 70% from the free throw line. Is that the schematic to beat UVA? A team that has a bad record, a team that has beaten them twice, so UVA is going to be motivated, a team that doesn't shoot well, is not efficient, and actually likes to run up and down the floor. No way. Is UVA going to struggle on offense? Absolutely not. Tony Bennett has his team firing on all cylinders. They've got almost their entire team back. Reese Beekman's been fantastic. UVA's second most efficient offense in the country. Reese Beekman, you may be worried because they played Michigan this week, had a nice comeback win UVA on the road. Is he going to play? Yes, I think he is. It's been 4 days. I have no indication anywhere on social media that Reese Beekman is not playing. You want to stay away because of a backdoor cover in an ACC game? Go right ahead. UVA, big number, -19 at home, game 3. I am laying the points here with UVA. Moving on here to my next game. Big game for Villanova. Big game for the Wildcats here. And we are going with Oklahoma +2.5 against Villanova. Coaching matters. I say it to you over and over again, and so do injuries. Kyle Neptune has taken over Villanova for Jay Wright, and he has struggled for 3 reasons. Number 1, no Justin Moore. You see in the picture there, still recovering from an Achilles tear. Number 2, star freshman, lottery pick projected, Cam Whitmore, still has not played with a hurt thumb. He's time decision today. And number 3, Villanova can't guard anyone. They are giving up buckets inside and outside the arc. They've struggled against Portland. They've struggled against Oregon. They've struggled against everyone. Here comes an Oklahoma team with Porter Moser as the head coach, former Loyola Chicago, who has come down to Oklahoma and has had this team fully recovered from their opening loss to Sam Houston State. Now, Sam Houston State is actually pretty good. They beat a Utah team that just took Arizona to the woodshed last night at home. So I think the team is actually pretty good. I think Oklahoma, that loss is not a problem. They are 6-1 this year, and Oklahoma is coming off huge wins over Seton Hall on a neutral, over Ole Miss, who I think is really, really good. We'll get to them a little bit later. They play a 1-3-1. They play all these different styles. Porter Moser has this team locking down on defense, which should not surprise you because that's the way it was at Loyola Chicago. They rebound the ball. They defend the three-pointer, hold the points to 25% from beyond the arc. That's top 20 this year. They defend inside the arc. The Sooners, with Moser's defense, are fantastic. I get that you're going to get a big Villanova home crowd here. I get that Villanova is going to have a rally early. I get all of that. To me, it's not going to matter. This is sort of a dead time. It's December 3rd. Kids are studying for finals. They may come out. This is not the same Villanova team that you've seen in the past. Both teams play at a slow pace, which means points are at a premium. I'm taking Oklahoma and the small number in a true road game to me against an absolutely shorthanded Villanova team. I like the Sooners. They are well coached by Porter Moser. That's the type of team you want. Who would I take Villanova against today? Against a team with a first-year head coach, against a team that's maybe playing over their record, what we thought they were going to be, almost like a Fordham. This is not Fordham. Oklahoma, Big 12, represent. Groves brothers inside. Devin Cambridge, transfer from Nevada, can shoot it from 3. They can score. They can play defense. They can rebound. Maybe Whitmore plays. He comes out, gives them a little excitement there as the freshman. It's his first game as a freshman against a good and well-coached Oklahoma team. No, thank you. Next game I'm going with here, Oklahoma, game 4, getting to 2.5 points against Villanova. Next up, Temple VCU. Look, folks, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. We are going with Temple laying the 2.5 points here against VCU. On Wednesday's show, we picked against both of these teams based on injury concerns, but I said the picks were based on the players. VCU point guard Ace Baldwin, who had a broken wrist, was a surprise start at home against Vandy, and I didn't think he was going to play. He came back, looked great against Vandy, 28 points, 4 3-pointers, superb performance. My question is, can Baldwin do that again on the road and back up that game in his second game back? No, I don't think so. Temple is a different team when fully healthy. I said if both Jameel Reynolds and Jaleel White were out that I was taking LaSalle, but they both came back and they both played well, and that's why Temple ended up pulling away at the second half against LaSalle. Jameel Reynolds, 10-8 in 23 minutes against LaSalle. Jaleel White, who may be even more important than Reynolds, 5 rebounds, a steal. He gets blocks. He defends. He often guards the best player on the other team. He is critical to Temple's depth. VCU is good, and they do force turnovers, but they also turn it over themselves. I expect a letdown here for VCU against the Vandy game. On the road here with Temple, you have Khalif Battle, who's 20 points per game. You have Damian Dunn, who's 17 points per game. They are better on offense than VCU, and I think they will score enough to get the job done here. Ace Baldwin, you are fantastic. And listen, you may prove it to me again and may prove that I'm wrong. But number 5, I am going Temple -2.5 here against VCU on the road. No problem there. Game 6. Looked for this one, and it's kind of under the radar, and no one is talking about it here. Look at Miami of Ohio getting 6.5 against Indiana State. I have several theories here with Indiana State. First off, it's the true road game for Indiana State and the Sycamores. Secondly, you're getting a home underdog with a decent spread, which is 6.5 points. 3, Sycamores are coming off that huge win over Drake. We talked about that. I said Indiana State never beats Drake. They were fired up at home. Crowd got into it. They were up big. Drake came all the way back, and Indiana State pulls it out at the end. But that takes a lot out of a team when you have a situation like that. They won that game. This is a letdown spot. They're playing Miami of Ohio, the Red Hawks. Tough team. Last year they played. Miami of Ohio lost by 1 point at Indiana State. They play Indiana State tough in a true road game. I love the points here at home with Miami of Ohio. 6.5 is a lot for Indiana State to cover. People are going to say they beat Drake. They're going to cover. Absolutely not. I don't buy that consistency. You saw what happened. Arizona goes on the road to Utah. They get blown out. Arizona State go on the road against Colorado. Colorado got a big. Arizona State comes back. The point is that games here, when you're at home in a game that you're a solid team with someone coming off a big win, are often very, very close. 6.5 is too much. Sycamores are just 4-3 against the spread this year. Miami of Ohio is 3-3, but they covered the last 2 games at home, and they dropped point totals of 80 and 95. Miami of Ohio can score at home. Red Hawks shoot free throws well. They're a home dog. They can score 6.5 points. Letdown spot, Indiana State, all over it here with 2 teams that played very, very close last year. Give me Miami of Ohio plus 6.5 is game number 6. Next game I'm going to here. Folks, this line I just simply don't understand. Toledo is playing George Mason, and I don't get this game at all. Toledo is an elite team. They get up and down the floor, and nobody can guard them. Now, George Mason has been very up and down. Kim English actually had a pretty big win recently, which was huge. But I don't know about this team. You're talking about a team here that's going to play Toledo, who goes up and down the floor, that has won big games on the road and has been battle tested. George Mason lost on a neutral to Boston College. George Mason lost to Belmont. George Mason lost to Buffalo, who's not very good at all. Toledo, on the other hand, has beaten Northern Kentucky, a solid, well-coached Northern Kentucky team on a neutral. They've beaten Richmond at home 90-67. Richmond is very, very good. Tyler Burton, elite scorer, and he is better than Josh Oduro, the big man inside for Mason. I get that George Mason plays tough. I get that Toledo sometimes doesn't play defense and can give up points. I don't trust George Mason's defense here when they're shooting 62% from the free throw line against a Toledo offense that shoots 39% from three-point range, 55% from two-point range, and 77%. The Toledo games, I have been right on. I have nailed almost every single Toledo matchup, and I think I'm going to do it again here. Mason will play tough. Mason will be up 15-12, something like that. And Toledo eventually gets their run where they separate. They make baskets. They get threes. They get twos. They don't turn the ball over. They are well coached here. Toledo in the Mid-American Conference wants to make the tournament. I am going here with Toledo -2.5 against George Mason. I don't trust George Mason. I know that Mason had a very nice win in their last game over Hofstra in overtime. Don't buy it here. Toledo coming off a big win over Richmond at home. Now they're going away. There's no look-ahead spot. The next game is Northern Iowa. Their conference games don't start until January 3rd. Toledo's better. This line is too long. We're taking Toledo -2.5 against George Mason. That's game number 7. Let's go to game number 8. two picks here with Duquesne and Ball State. I am a fan of Duquesne. I am a fan of Keith Dambro. If you have watched this show, you know that. So we have two picks here for Duquesne and Ball State. I am going with Duquesne -9 against Ball State and this game to go to the over. Several reasons. I think that Keith Dambro's Duquesne Dukes are a dark horse to win the A10. I genuinely like this team. They're home. They've been home since November 18th, and they're playing a Ball State team that is on the road and has been away from home since November 19th. A lot of travel. Duquesne will give open shots. They do. They're solid inside the arc, but they gamble and they can give up some threes. And I think that Ball State will make some threes. So what does that mean? To me, that's an over 143, because Duquesne has been able to put up some points earlier this year. They scored 83 against North Florida. They scored 85 against Colgate. They scored 96 against South Carolina State. They even gave up 77 at Kentucky on the road. They played a good UC Santa Barbara team. Duquesne did on November 29th. They had struggled with some covers, but they got a cover against a good team in UC Santa Barbara, who is light years ahead of Ball State. Ball State has been on the road. I think it's a bad spot. Duquesne can hit some threes from deep. They're shooting almost 39% from beyond the arc. They don't turn the ball over. They do force turnovers. I don't think if Ball State gets down, they're going to be able to come back, but I do think they're going to be able to score. Ball State played a good Vermont team on a neutral court, and that game went to 151 points. Vermont does not play fast. Vermont was still trying to acclimate from last year. Duquesne is going to score. I think Ball State, who can shoot well from beyond the arc, is going to get some open looks. Duquesne has no problem playing games to the over. So two picks here. I like Duquesne, and I like them against Ball State, and I like this game going over here with game number 8. Couple picks left, folks, and then we will move on and let you get going with your day. This game is coming up very, very soon. Okay, so I'm going to put it up right now. Notre Dame, Syracuse, we are going with the over on 133.5. Notre Dame is a team that can score at home, that can shoot. Them and Syracuse have had some very sneaky games that are up tempo where they can actually score. I like this Notre Dame team. They played very well at home and put some big, big points up in their last battle, which was a fantastic win for the Irish and Mike Brey against Michigan State, 70-52. They score well at home. Their last games at home this year, they've scored 88, 82, 66, 82, 70. Here comes Syracuse with that zone. Syracuse has not been stopping anyone. They gave up 73 to Illinois. They gave up 73 to Bryant at home. They gave up 76 points to St. John's. I think Notre Dame can score. Now, Syracuse usually keeps this game close. I think they're going to find a way to get points because Notre Dame isn't great on defense. So I think the over is in play, 133.5. These teams have ended up playing in the past. Notre Dame last year ended up beating them 79-69 away. They posted some big performances. They can score. I like Syracuse to keep this game close. It's the ACC opener against Notre Dame, who doesn't play great defense but can shoot well at home. I think this number is way, way too low. So we're taking the over here in Notre Dame, Syracuse. Get that game in because it's going to start very, very soon. Couple more for you here. Love the rivalry games. You know that. And I love the rivalry games when I'm getting points. So we're going to love Rhode Island plus 4.5 here against Providence. Now, I have backed Rhode Island in some of their matchups recently, and they've been very profitable for me. You had Rhode Island against Boston College. They lose away? Absolutely, 53-49, but they got the cover there. Rhode Island has played some tough teams. They played Tulane on a neutral, who we talked about earlier, only lost by 3. They play Kansas State, who's very good on a neutral. They've played a Texas State team at home that's very good. They've played some tough opponents, but Archie Miller has Rhode Island playing a lot better. I do not trust Providence with Ed Cooley. This is a rivalry game. Providence brought a ton of players in from last year. They are only 285th at Ken Pom with minutes continuity, only 25% of their minutes returning here. And you're going to give me 4 points with Rhode Island at home. I will take that every single time. Providence is horrific at guarding the 3. They're almost the worst in the country, allowing over 40% from beyond the arc. They defend inside, but they don't force a lot of turnovers. Rhode Island can be very comfortable. This is a rivalry between these two teams in the location there in Rhode Island. I like the Rams getting 4 points. Folks, I am a sucker when you're going to give me that amount of points there in a home matchup against the Providence team that's a little shaky. I love teams at home that are underdogs, especially earlier in the year, especially in a rivalry game. 4.5 points with the Rams at home against Providence. I do not trust Providence. Ed Cooley, fantastic job last year. A lot of turnover here. Rams, Archie Miller, going to play tough at home. I like the 4.5 in a game that I make an absolute coin flip. Last game here at the end of the day, when we get our money and we do real well, you want to sprinkle a little bit. Remember I told you about the sprinkle the other night? Remember I told you about New Mexico going to St. Mary's and we took 10 and New Mexico got the outright win? Well, this is going to be our late night game here. The Houston Cougars against St. Mary's. There are very few teams that have been as impressive as Houston. And this game is a semi-home game. It is a game down in Texas there. It's at Dickies Arena in Fort Worth. Going to have a good crowd here against St. Mary's. Now, St. Mary's is very well coached by Randy Bennett, but Houston is 6-1 against the spread. The only team they stumbled against was Kent State. Kent State came in. They came down to the Fertitta Center and played them very, very tough. Houston suffocates you on defense. They are allowing 18% from three-point range. That's number 1 in the country. They are number 1 in the country in effective field goal percentage. And they are number 4 in the country, allowing teams under 40%. Now, St. Mary's is very well coached by Randy Bennett, but St. Mary's has started to show some warts. They don't have a superior offense. They do well against teams where they can dominate defensively, but they have trouble against superior athletes. They have trouble against players, especially guards who can score. You had both Jamal Mashburn and Jalen House there, went in to Moraga against St. Mary's. Mashburn, 12 points. Jalen House, 17 points. House went 3 of 5 from beyond the arc, and they shot 500 from three-point range, 5 of 10. St. Mary's, you have Alex Duquesne, the senior inside. He had 25 points against New Mexico, but New Mexico doesn't play anywhere the type of defense that Houston is. You can't replicate what Houston does. St. Mary's lost to Washington on a neutral court, 68-64 in overtime on Thursday, Thanksgiving, November 24th. Then they lost at home to New Mexico. Now they're going away to Houston. They don't make free throws. St. Mary's shooting only 63%. I get that St. Mary's is a solid team. I get that they're well coached. I get that they play at a slow pace, so we're laying a big number with a slow pace. But St. Mary's, they're going to beat Gonzaga this year, but they're not beating Houston. I am taking the Cougars. I am not fading the Cougars here against St. Mary's, even in the neutral site. They are 6-1 against the spread. Their defense, their tenacity, they have such a unique style. Kelvin Sampson's done a great job, and you have seen success this year from veteran coaches that have a style that play things a certain way. So give me Houston minus the big number against St. Mary's to wrap up a fantastic, hopefully a fantastic day that we have here betting with college basketball. So let's recap for you very quickly. Rutgers plus 3.5 against Indiana. If Mulcahy is going to play and the point guard is going to play in that game, that number is going to drop. Tulane minus 11.5 against Fordham. I know Jalen Cook. I think Jalen Cook's going to play. I don't trust Fordham in their first road game. Not at all. Give me Tulane laying the big number, and most people will not. I don't know why you would take Florida State over Virginia. I don't care that it's 19 points. I'm laying those points with UVA, who to me right now is the favorite to win the national championship this year. Oklahoma plus 2.5. Coaching matters. Villanova is going to be fired up. Their fans are going to be fired up. But Porter Mosher is going to have that Oklahoma team ready. Plus 2.5. Ace Baldwin, I'm going back at you here with VCU. I don't think VCU can get it done on the road. I like Temple laying the small number. They are completely healthy. Reynolds is back. White is back. Baldwin burned me against Vanderbilt. Let's see if you can do it on the road against a good defensive Temple team. Miami of Ohio getting 6.5 against Indiana State, who is coming off the big monumental win over Drake, who they never beat in a letdown spot. Toledo minus 2.5 against George Mason. I just don't see it. Josh Adura, the big guy inside for Mason, would have to have a huge game like 25-12. Don't see it happening. Toledo is too talented. Keith Dambro and my Duquesne Dukes laying 9 points and going over with 143. And then our other games, of course, we're going to have the St. Mary's game against Houston to make sure that we get that one to the window. Rhode Island getting 4.5 as the true underdog against Providence. And the one that should be tipping off any minute, ND and Syracuse. Folks, thank you so much for joining us. Like, subscribe, put a comment, follow me on Twitter at Randle Rant, FTN Bets. We got Frank Brank in the Discord, 8 a.m. giving you his picks. He's been fantastic. Mike Kutry, the prop master, has been over 50 units in November. College basketball content, you know where to come. You're coming here to FTN. Thanks so much for joining us, everyone. We look forward to seeing you again next week. We give you 3 days, usually Monday, one other one, and Saturday. So we hope to see you again next week, folks. I'm Mike Randle for FTN College Basketball Picks.